we just had some yum, delicious, 100% farm to table. And why is it like an extra special farm to table? Well, number one, it's because we're moving into the summer and this is a time of year when we have abundance of delicious vegetables and fruits and all kinds of things. But two, Krystle and Ryan Keller are here.
I've never had a salad that tasted that good before.
So that's the exact same salad we had with Sandy last week, but this week it had an extra special farm to table surprise. It actually had vinegar that we've made here on the farm.
Yum.
Yum.
I love vinegar, and that was on another level.
It's fantastic to have these little surprise things. So what happened was in 2021, I harvested the grapes. My parents were out of town. By the time my dad got back, the grapes had over fermented. So it meant that we couldn't do any wine with them. And so the last 2 years, he's been making vinegar out of that. And he brought it in tonight. Hey, I think this turned out really good. What do you think? And I was like, well, I'm going to let the Kellers try it tonight and we can decide whether it goes on salads and, whether it's any good. And of course, I think the pairing with the figs and the cucumbers and all of that, the arugula. Yeah.
Nothing goes to waste on a farm.
Nothing. And it's fascinating to get to see all of these different obtain a yield. Obtain a yield was my permaculture principle that I named in this last week. And really that's what it is. It's like every single thing that occurs, I have to look at it and go, okay, well, how can I creatively turn that into income or into something that's going to come back to the farm in every situation?
And it's what I like is never wasting anything.
Yeah.
Taking that product that I don't know the backstory on the vinegar, so to speak, everything, but like turned it into that right there. That I would sell like hotcakes.
Yep, that's exactly what he was feeling. That was exactly what he was saying about it all. Okay, so we're moving into that time of year where you might actually have a little bit of a break. Do you guys have any summer plans at all?
We do have a little short, small vacation planned. We're going to go to the Frio River for 3-4 days.
Nice.
And we've done this pretty much every year we go. This will be our 3rd or 4th year. So it's kind of becoming a tradition for us.
Yeah.
But our kids are really excited. And our oldest son just turned 16 yesterday. And he's really excited about the water slide there at Neal's, which is where we're going to be staying.
Plan a trip, some kind of a trip in usually the very end of January or the very beginning of February. And then I usually plan a trip sometime in August. What are y'all like? Because we've got to get away. Here's the thing. In Texas, for me, a grower, and you guys are ranchers, and meat farmers, livestock producers, I could grow all year long. Like in South Texas, I really could work every day, all year long. There's plenty to do, even though I'm not necessarily planting as many seeds in August and January, February. But you do have to take time for yourself, and you do have to make those efforts to make time. Have y'all gotten to a place where that's become something that's becoming a little bit more firm in your family and your lifestyle?
I do agree that is an important thing. And I know it especially when my kids start saying, Mom, we just never go anywhere. We never leave the house. We're always at the farm. We always have all these farm chores to do. We can't ever leave. And we're very blessed to have some family members that kind of step in and take over so that we can get away.
Yeah.
Which that's going to happen when we go to our little Frio vacation. But we also have I have a mother-in-law, my husband's mother. She's kind of a live-in person for us, and she's at our beck and call. So she doesn't have any problem with feeding pigs and moving cows. She's totally okay to do that, and of course our kiddos help her. But that's the only way we can really plan something is if we know that we have farm coverage.
Early on, that wasn't the case though. You're setting up systems and you're trying to get clientele and you want to be there for them consistently.
Yeah.
And you just don't have time for it in the early stages, bootstrapping the farm along and you got to be there.
Yeah.
Somebody's got to feed the chickens, somebody's got to water the garden, move the cows, things break.
Yeah.
And that and like we were talking earlier when we were cooking, like it's not as sexy as everybody thinks. It would be awesome to say, yeah, we grow this and it's always green year round. It isn't. We go through
Yeah.
seasons,
Yeah.
and the
And
majority,
something always breaks.
yeah, and the majority of the work that a farmer does is maintenance on
Yeah.
fencing, on water systems,
Yeah.
On your vehicles,
on your vehicles.
yeah, and the well
Mhm.
never going to go out
Uh-huh.
on in the middle of the week when you can go get parts.
No.
So you got to have some redundancy
Yeah.
built into that, and
Yeah. Broken water pipes are like guaranteed. You're always going to have a broken water pipe somewhere.
exactly. So like
Mhm.
early on, no, we didn't talk about vacation. That was a bad word. And we didn't have anybody to farm sit.
I'm never going to be a good farmer if I can't figure out how to break and go. And in the August time period, I always have had dreams of breaking and going north and working on some other farms. So it's not that I'm like trying to get away from working. It's just that I just need to get away for a little while and kind of bring energy home later
Oh,
on.
absolutely. It's not sustainable. And as much as we throw the word sustainable around in
Yes.
our realm of agriculture, it's not sustainable not to be able to get away or to, have a night out, because you're stuck to it's calving season or
Yeah. Something always.
something. There's always
Yes.
something going on,
Yeah.
or a market tomorrow that we got to prepare for. It's time to inventory because the online store needs to be updated,
Yeah.
and that in itself. When I started learning, so I wish I would have learned business before I learned farming, but that's not the way it came, So I learned the business, and I'm still learning the business
Yeah.
side of things, and uh, to have systems, or either you just own a job when you start a business, and if you don't show up, things don't get done, or you have systems that other people can come in and learn those systems, and they can take the load off your shoulders.
Yep.
So
Yep.
that's
Yeah.
important.
But systems tend to come in place when you're in the kind of field that we're in, especially because we're in such a small scale. And in our region, there's not people that are doing it at such a small scale that we're developing a lot of the systems. And yes, we can go to other people and look at what they've done, but on our own property, we have to be able to observe. I mean, I go back to the principles of regenerative and permaculture, and they always add in a principle that is about like lifestyle and observation. And you've got to understand how you're going to be able to interact with the things going on your land, and then you can be able to see where potential pitfalls are and whether that's going to be able to get you into a place where you can create a system where your kids can help someday whenever you get to an age, or whatever it is. But we're building our own systems with our hands in the dirt because there's really no one to model a lot of grow local. I could modify that or model that after some other organizations in North Texas areas and Austin and stuff like that. But it never like matched what Corpus Christi needed. I had to create what Corpus Christi needed. Well, that's really no different than if I talk about my farming or your livestock production. You are having to pay attention to what's actually occurring on your land with your family and what y'all need.
Exactly.
Mhm.
It's going to be different from person to person, whether you have a family or you're single, or it's just you and your spouse
Mhm.
or your partner.
Mhm.
And like in our county, like the soil types change drastically. You just drive 10 miles and you're in a different soil type. Where we're at,
Yeah.
we're on a gravel hill.
Yeah.
What do you have? What are you growing? Well, we started breeding and having a farrow to finish hog operation. And, people that are just raising a few hogs don't run into the feral hogs coming in wanting to breed
Ah,
your
yeah.
females.
Yes.
So you got to develop a system of
Uh-huh.
how to continue doing the rotations and the pasture based model, but how do you exclude those wild hogs from
Uh-huh.
coming in and breeding the females? So
So you're inventing the wheel for
you
South Texas, basically.
yeah, and you're picking and choosing from other
Uh-huh.
people things that you
Uh-huh.
see, the stuff that from past experiences, or just trying things based on just anecdotal information that you're just coming up with on your own,
I
trial and
kind of
error.
think we're like the smartest people that ever existed, that like like because we have to know everything, and we don't have to know it all well, but we have to be creative, and we have to create solutions to problems quick, like overnight or in hours.
Well, and Krystle could probably tell you a handful of times, every time I leave the farm,
Something
that's
happens.
when something happens. So
Yes.
she's got to be creative,
Yeah.
and it's really empowered her.
Yeah.
I can tell you a story about when he was working one night, and this has been a while back, but there was a hellacious thunderstorm came through,
Uh-huh.
and I was out in thunder and lightning, and I was in my nightgown, I was soaking wet, and I was trying to rescue broilers from the pen because I didn't want them to drown.
Yeah.
And in the middle of the night, I rescued 50 broilers, and they all survived.
Anybody that doesn't know what a broiler is, it's a meat chicken, and their
Little young.
chickens don't
Yeah.
move when it's dark.
Uh-huh.
So they hunker down on the ground, and we live on a hill. So when you get about an inch of rain, it drowns them.
Nice.
So she was out there in a lightning storm, putting them in a tote and bringing them inside, drying them off.
Do you find that you're literally not afraid of anything? Like you're just out there just like I just have this strange, like I walk around on the farm now and I just like pitch black. Like I don't even care. I'm stomping around in my nightgown. Like I just like you just become a different person when shit's got to get taken care of and there's no one else to solve the problem.
Yeah. So anyone that knew me before we were farmers would never believe that I did stuff like this.
Butchering chickens.
Yeah, and I'm kind of good at that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think you want me on. Ryan wants me on his team every time we have to butcher chickens. He's like, "You're gonna have to take that day off work because I need you here."
Yeah.
Well, and my wife is an extremely hard worker.
Yes.
So
I can tell.
it took some convincing to get her to go this route, but once she did, it was like it's a no-brainer.
Okay, so Krystle, you work off the farm though. Yeah.
Yes, I work full time for the Victoria Independent School District.
Yes. And so
Just recently.
Yeah, I went back to work full time this past, in July of 2022. So I just finished my first year as the gifted and talented coordinator for Victoria School District.
I'm always curious about that. I was talking to somebody the other day about having, dual income households. Like you have to have dual income households. And then it's like, okay, well, can my farm make enough to be one of those incomes? And then I have another, or can my farm make enough to be both of those incomes? And I know that's been part of, a lot of conversation that you guys have probably gotten into over the last few years of, because you guys have like 4 incomes on your household, right?
Mhm.
Like y'all have a lot of different incomes going on in your household. You're a firefighter, yeah, Ryan?
Yeah, I recently went back to work full-time firefighting, so I'm on a 48-96 schedule. So I work 48 hours off the farm, and they take care of the farm, and I come back and catch up.
And that's 48 hours, people, for things that go wrong. And it always go wrong on the 48 hours that he's
When
gone.
he's gone.
Yes.
I'm
never
thankful that
fails.
I have 2 sons that can pick up the slack, and my wife, she knows the ins and outs, along with my mom, kind of cracking a whip.
I think it's fascinating. These are the stories that I think are important that we don't often talk about, is that these people that are producing our food for us are, there's absolutely a labor of love that we cannot deny about, making the choice to do this as a lifestyle. Yeah, because we're going completely 100% against the grain. I've been learning how to cook all kinds of things, and I've been grateful when I stopped by at the farmer's market to pick up meat. You've given me some suggestions. A couple of weeks ago, I made goat steak with Zelina Zamora. She's a chef in town, and that was one of the things that you had suggested to me. And then I picked up, I don't know, several weeks ago, a small little rack of pork ribs. And so I had those in the freezer, and I decided to try out making them with the Instant Pot. And interestingly enough, it was one of those nights where I had been out in town running around and then got home kind of late. These times of year, I'm sure you guys notice this, that like when it doesn't get dark till 9:00, you're up till like midnight and you're eating at like 10:30 at night or whatever. Are you guys feeling some of that?
Especially as a farmer, because you get up early, and you do the work or your chores, and then you may have a project that you want to knock out, and then by 1:00 it is so hot, especially
Yes.
in our climate,
Yes.
that it's time to go do the inside
Yes.
stuff.
Yes.
And that may be eating,
Uh-huh.
doing some administrative stuff, some paperwork, some bookkeeping,
Yep.
calling people, and then taking a nap, and then getting back at it around 5:00 and working from 5 till dark.
Yeah.
in the afternoon.
Talking about the siesta time, that we're like, I find myself like actually needing a nap. So that gets you to understand like how did the like some of these, traditions, the siesta, the idea that the farmer came in and took a nap, like
No, I think that's exactly right. And as we transition from the farm to the city lifestyle, you had 30 minutes, maybe an hour for a lunch break, and you had to get back to your cubicle
yes,
or your desk job or whatever you're
yes,
doing on the assembly line. And at about 10:30, 11 o'clock, and all the cows are laying down, chewing their cud underneath a tree.
uh-huh,
And they're going to do that until it starts cooling off in the afternoon.
exactly. So I came in the other night after having been running errands and running in town, and then came home and then went outside and worked outside because I'm going to catch those last 2 hours of the day because they're the nicest hours of the entire day. So I'm out there from 7 o'clock till 9 o'clock. Then I come in, I'm like, I actually have to cook some food now. So I threw some pork ribs in the Instant Pot. It was a small section, and then it took a yellow onion, some carrots, garlic clove, cherry juice it called for, bone broth, which of course I just used some chicken bone broth that I had, fresh thyme, fresh oregano, and I put it in the Instant Pot, and it made a fantastic turnout. In 45 minutes, or basically like 15 minutes to kind of quickly like chop up some stuff, throw it in there, throw the ribs in there, cooked it for 45 minutes, and it came out, and it ended up being, it was such a small little rack that I ended up just eating the whole thing by myself. Like I ate the whole entire meal by myself.
I actually have shared a similar recipe with some of our customers as far as doing pork ribs in the Instapot, especially for busy moms, because you get home at the end of the day and you have to figure out something for dinner.
Uh-huh.
And if you thaw the ribs out good enough and they've been just perfectly, they mold inside your Instapot.
Yeah.
And once you get the Instapot going where it's on like a high pressure cook,
Uh-huh.
it makes those ribs so tender. And then
Yes.
I usually suggest, finish them in the oven.
Uh-huh.
You can like baste them with a little bit of barbecue sauce, or you can use garlic and butter, whatever you prefer, and just kind of roast them in the oven, on a really high heat to where they kind of get that crispiness
Crispy.
that you would get in
Yeah.
a barbecue pit or on a smoker. So,
Yeah.
I shared that recipe just the other day with one of our customers.
Well, it was 100% worth it. Like I said, it was super easy, and it's another quick way for me to learn. Like I'm learning how to cook meat. You said it, Ryan, tonight. The best thing is learn how not to overcook your meat. And you cooked two different things for us tonight. You cooked some pork chops.
Yeah, so we had the center cut pork loin. It was a bone in from our hogs, and we also had a New York strip with a bone in.
It was dang good.
Yeah, and we keep it simple on the farm. A friend of mine, fellow farmer, put it best years ago. He said people don't appreciate the taste of vegetables and meats that are hand grown
Mm-hmm.
and raised. Everything tastes wild or gamey these days.
Yeah.
It's because the foods that we eat from the grocery store have no flavor
Yeah.
because they're out of season, or they're not raised in the correct environment where they can develop a flavor. Like wine takes on a different flavor depending on the region you're in.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
The wine we had tonight was delicious. By the
Grown
way.
here at Freedom Harvest Farms.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And
Uh-huh.
and grass finished meats are the same way. Depending on what the forage you have in your pastures, it can take on a different flavor profile. And he put it best. He said all people want to do these days is take sauces and spices and they want to put it on meat, and meat is basically just a medium for
To
the
carry
sauces.
the sauce. Yeah.
And think about it.
crazy.
I mean, chicken tastes like nothing, pork tastes like nothing from the store.
Uh-huh.
Beef, it's hit or miss,
Yeah.
depends where it's grown and raised. We're importing a lot of it, and but farm fresh stuff does have good flavor. And I liked what you did when I was cutting off some of the fat in the gristle.
Yeah.
You went and snagged that because you appreciate
literally gnawing on a piece of fat and gristle, like, oh no, I want this. This is my favorite part of the steak.
same. That's me too.
Yeah.
And now you see that they're selling they're selling a rubber ball for jaw exercises because they're saying our jaws are getting smaller because we don't chew as much anymore.
Shut up.
Yeah.
You need to chew your gristle.
That's
like,
right.
Come on,
Yeah.
dummies.
Eat some wild meat that's got a little bit of a texture to it instead of everything being, don't get me wrong. I like to have a nice, well marbled steak
Yeah.
as well. That's delicious. But think about it. All of our food is like the chickens that they raise are, like 45 days old, start to finish. The hogs are 6 months old. Everything's so tender.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it kind of makes you think, maybe they got some validity in the jaw exercise things because historically,
We're not chewing our meat.
we're not chewing
Not
things,
chewing anything.
right?
Yeah.
Fruits, vegetables are already pureed or cooked into things, or are we even eating that type of stuff?
Yeah.
So
Yeah, that's fascinating. Okay, so tell me how you prepared. You made a simple preparation for the steaks, but you did it ahead of time.
yeah, for the beef, I'm a big fan of taking it out and thawing it completely. Letting it come to almost room temperature,
Uh-huh.
and then like those are 1.25 inch and a half thick cut steaks.
Fantastic New York strips, you guys.
So
And what was on them?
what I like to do is just salt them very
Salt.
heavily, just
Yes.
salt and pat them in, and then put them back in the refrigerator in something covered, and just let them soak up that salt. And you would think, man, that's going to be too salty. No, what it does, it imparts an even amount of salt to
Uh-huh.
every bite of that piece of
Uh-huh.
meat.
Yeah.
And then, after you're done cooking it, you can add butter or garlic or onion powder or whatever you like to on it. But think
Uh-huh.
about it. When you cook things, normally you're losing a lot of that in the cooking process.
Right.
So add those things afterwards. But the key here is don't put it on the hot grill until it's at room temperature.
Okay.
I like to use something like olive oil or butter or tallow or hog lard on the grill or on the steak to
Just
help
kind
it.
of browns it a little
Yeah, it
bit.
gives it
Yeah.
a nice crust.
Uh-huh.
And obviously those were rare steaks tonight,
They
and I
were
like to
real
take
good.
those off. No matter if you cook it rare to medium rare, medium well, take them off, cover them without them touching in a dish, and just let them sit over there for 5 minutes.
Uh-huh.
And all those juices just release and just release back into the muscle meat, and it's a way better eating experience. And as far as the pork loin, still with salt, and those were 1 inch thick cuts, but we also like to rub them down with a lot of extra homegrown honey.
Honey.
So
Good.
that gives it a nice taste. And you just got to cook the meat the same exact way as you would the steak, but maybe on a lower heat because the sugars and the honey can burn. But it
Uh-huh.
gives it, if you don't burn it like too bad, it gives it a nice bark, a nice crispiness to the outside.
I heard Krystle say she liked the pork chop the best tonight.
Yeah, and before we put the pork chops on to cook, I reminded Ryan that we need to just score the fat because that seems to be a really important thing to do when you do the pork chops because it helps the fat to really render down. And if you don't score those pork chops, sometimes you kind of get a big piece of chewy fat that didn't really get to cook as much.
Uh-huh.
So once you actually score that stuff, it kind of just melts in your mouth. And yes, that was my favorite tonight. I ate
Yeah.
every bite.
Yeah, we like to cut that fat, turn that pork chop on in because it's got a 3/4 inch fat cap around the backside of that pork chop, and just take a sharp knife and just cut it on 1/4 to 1/2 inch intervals.
Mm-hmm.
And when it cooks, it's gonna almost bear claw fingers out,
Yep.
and you're able to render that fat like she says, and it just makes it so much better where you want to eat it. It gives it a good texture.
Yeah, and so then we had really simply something I've been making a lot of is just the roasted vegetables. And I did the first mixing of the roasted vegetables was celery, turnips, carrots, some radishes, some onions, all just tossed. And I've been making a new salt, Cuban oregano salt. I have tons of Cuban oregano right now, and literally I'm doing like an 80-20. When I make my salt, you guys know I put that in my chopper, chop it up really nicely, and then put it on the lowest temperature in my oven and just kind of keep tossing it until it gets hard and dried out, and then put it back in my chopper, chop it up and blend it up. And we used that on the roasted veggies. I think we used it a little bit on our salad tonight as well. So just like last week, oregano is good is the answer for everything. We're finding again, y'all really liked the flavor of that salt.
That was my favorite out of all the ones we
I
tried.
pulled them all out. I pulled the dill salt out. I pulled all the different flavors, pulled everything out. And then we took that vinegar that my dad had made here at the farm, and put it on top of a salad that was, again, similar to the salad I made last week because we're still in fig season. So it had figs, red onions, cucumbers. I put it over the top of some arugula salad and then splashed that red wine vinegar over the top of it. And it made seriously, just a basic farm to table, but every single thing we ate on our plate tonight came off of my farm or your farm together. Yeah.
It was a $60-$70 meal. I mean,
I know,
I'm not
right?
trying to put
Yeah.
but like if you went out to buy that, I mean, that's how good it was. And it was simple.
Yeah.
And the awesome thing was you grew the vegetables. We grew the proteins.
Yeah.
And we're here together to share the bounty together. And your dad with the vinegar. You know, something that went past what he was probably planning.
Yep, exactly.
And it's still an awesome product.
Yes.
Something great.
And then, of course, after I'd let you guys try the vinegar, I was like, well, you got to try the wine too. So I pulled out the second bottling of the 2020 vintage. And I'll speak for myself, but that bottling was really good. I'm enjoying that wine.
I think I need to change my statement here. I think the wine was actually my favorite. The pork chops were a close second.
I'm not a wine drinker. I'm just never really appealed to me a whole lot. I like certain wines, and that one is probably number one on my list.
Wow.
I'm not saying that because you
Yes.
invited us over to be on a podcast. It's
Yeah.
the truth.
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, I'm going to taste it. And it's just smooth.
Yeah. A little bit sweet, but not
It's
sweet, but a little bit sweet.
Yeah. It was great.
Yeah, it's really good. I'm looking forward to, I'm having a summer solstice event on June the 21st here at the farm. It's going to be in the evening, so we're going to be doing a little bit of sun gazing, watching the sunset. I'm going to put together a nice charcuterie board, and then, of course, all of the fruits and the fermented beverage fruits that we have here at the farm will be available for people to taste.
The ones you don't have to chew.
Yeah, the ones I don't have to chew. Exactly. So that'll be a really nice evening. If anybody is interested in that, just reach out to me and I'll send you the link to pick up your tickets and to reserve your spot. It's going to be very limited because I only have so much space, but I'm going to have to reach out to you guys to get some of the pork loin, the smoked pork loin. Is that the one y'all make? And some of y'all's dried meats and stuff like that. So
yeah, absolutely. I think that would pair good with just Aislynn and a good time out here on the farm.
It'll pair good with the wine.
There you go. We're loving it. And dinner was excellent. I'm so glad. Like having like the 5-star dining experience once a week in my house. I don't know how I ended up with this kind of wealth, but it's pretty freaking fantastic. I guess I'll have to just do what I do every single morning now, and that is get up and thank God for the new day that's coming and all the delicious things that are going to be coming at me. I was telling you guys tonight that back in, I think it was about 2010, 2011, I read a book called The Food Revolution. And it was actually a book written by John Robbins, who is the Robbins in the Baskins and Robbins dairy ice cream industry. Food Revolution is actually about the dairy industry and about the meat industry. And so that was the first step in basically, I went on this really long camping trip to Big Bend, and with 8th grade kids at the school my ex-husband was the principal at, and came home not eating meat anymore. Like I basically read a book on a trip, and then and that's not, I mean, I guess that's kind of the way I am about things, but what happened was it really wasn't even about what they're doing in the industry to animals, although I care. Right. So I cared about that, but it was about the idea that the way when he was explaining it, that there's no possible way that the way we're doing things with meat, that it could even remotely be sustainable, right? Because of the amount of water it requires to grow the amount of vegetables in order to, but they weren't saying people shouldn't eat meat. And this is a big part of the conversation over the last decade that has been a big mix in the conversation, the sacred cow and all the different conversations like that. But I came home and said, okay, I'm not going to eat meat anymore unless it's wild caught or wild harvested. So like my family going out and hunting. And then we did have a family friend who was taking their cattle off of their ranch directly to a butcher. And so that was the first time that like, so it was very rare. So I would have to be out there at the restaurants trying to find vegetarian foods. And in South Texas, in Corpus Christi, eating a vegetarian food restaurant was like a brown salad. And so I was basically like starving. I was trying to feed my kids. I didn't want to feed my daughter the dairy anymore that had all these, I didn't even know what was real or not real, but there was too many
Exactly.
things they were telling me that were scaring me about everything that we were doing to our children. And so I became this kind of crazy hippie girl that wouldn't eat meat, but would eat meat, but had, was picky, was making up my own rules. And before I know it, I'm like, well, where would we even have access to this food? I liked gardening. Okay. So now I'm starting a farmer's market and basically leading the entire like local food industry network in South Texas, just because I had an idea of wanting to farm, but most importantly, I knew that I didn't have access to the food I wanted to eat. And I was learning that there had to be some people out there that had this interest as well. And I met you guys back in, I don't know, maybe 2014, 2013,
That
2014
sounds
at a
about right.
early conference, one
Yep.
of the first conferences Grow Local put on. And it was back when Grow Local was trying to do a little bit of everything because there was nothing. And now Grow Local doesn't have to do everything because there's all kinds of things going on in the industry in our area. But I was really curious about how you got into it and what drove you, because clearly anybody that doesn't work as hard as what we do with farming and still has a job as a firefighter and their wife still has a job and like there's got to be something more to this than the idea that like somehow you're going to be a wealthy farmer living on a fancy ranch, in Texas.
That was a mouthful, but it was all true. So yeah, around 2011, I was at the firehouse and I was putting on a training for the guys. I was a lieutenant at the time, and I was wanting to do a little training. And when we got done with the training, well, we started off by taking vital signs for everybody. And I noticed at the time I was probably 26 or 27,
Mm-hmm.
and my blood pressure was a little higher than I
Mm-hmm.
remember it being. And by the time we did the training and got done, I was at the end of the pack,
Mm-hmm.
and I was supposed to be the leader of these guys. And that I had a mental shift in my head at that point in time. I said, I got to be better. I got to be healthier. People expect firefighters to be tip top shape, anyways.
Uh-huh.
And food is big in the firehouse.
Oh yeah, I've heard that.
That's a big thing.
You're in charge of being the cook that night, and you have to make the meal for everybody.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's after we get our stuff checked out. That's the big topic, is what are we going to eat.
Uh-huh.
And I fell hard in that because I've always loved food.
Mm-hmm.
And so I let my eating habits get away from me, and I was eating. I didn't care what I ate. I didn't care about where the food come from or where I was raised. That was never a thought in my mind. I think that's a majority of people. They don't think about that. We're conscious. We don't eat consciously. We just do it because it's something we do. And
you don't even have to chew your food. You just like swallow while you watch TV.
Right. That's why our jaw muscles are weak. But no. So I hooked up with a couple other guys that I was friends with that were gym rats, and we started working out, and I started changing my diet. And I come across a book by Joseph Mercola, which is a natural health dietitian in Chicago. And in his book, he talked about pasture raised and grass fed meats, and cutting some of the sugars out, cutting a lot of the sugars out of your diet. So I went, basically just eating meat and vegetables, I guess what they call the keto diet now.
Yeah.
And I went from 210 pounds to 178 pounds in, 3 or 4 months.
Mm-hmm.
And, went from having elevated blood pressure to you couldn't outwork me. So I was looking.
But you felt different. Your body felt different. You could see things a little more clearly.
That's what, like you were talking earlier,
Yeah.
That's something a lot of people don't take into consideration, was like, how is eating this away going to affect me?
Mm-hmm.
How do I justify it in my budget?
Yeah.
And what was your response when people were saying that?
I believe what I have seen in my own personal experience is that yes, you're going to spend less money on the medicines. You're going to spend less money on supplements, even. You're going to spend less money going to the doctor because you're not catching little colds and all that. And of course, don't even count out all of the like autoimmune disorders and things that have people on regular prescriptions, right? So even if I put all that stuff aside, my mind has gotten so clear. My body feels so good. I feel so different about everything that there's no way you couldn't make more money. You're going to, if you're an entrepreneur, you're going to be better at making different income streams. You're going to be more creative. You're going to come up with better ways of doing it. And if you're a corporate worker, you're going to look at your job and go, like, I can make a lot more money doing a lot more work because I feel good and I want to go do my job.
Exactly. And something that just popped in my mind, you know, and that's a good thing about collaborating with different people, especially intelligent people that like to think outside the box like yourself is, now I'm getting old and I can't remember the thought, but the idea is, you know, with all the depression we are facing in this country,
Yes.
and it's food related.
Absolutely. I can tell you for fact, I'm dealing with that. Like I fix depression issues with food.
You know, and so we have ADD with the phones, the devices, all the social media, and the depression. But if you can eat and it makes you happy,
yes,
you know, it makes you think clearly, it does positive things for your health. Think about all the money you don't spend on those excesses trying to achieve that dopamine release.
Yep.
That, man, I'm just happy to be alive this morning.
Yeah.
You know, I'm happy to be XYZ. And, you know, with us farmers, it's just going outside and being with the animals, or harvesting, or just walking through the gardens, drinking, you know, a cup of coffee or whatever it may be, you know. And you could be in the city and be the same way, but it's just the blissfulness that comes with having that clarity.
Understanding and being able to quantify the qualifiable things that are occurring on the farm. Like when I think back to the initial question, which is like, why would you choose this lifestyle when you're still working incomes outside of the home and you're working your tails off and and to me, it's like you're finding a way to actually create that sustainable option. But the only way you're able to do it is by looking at all of the things that are the quality of life that exist in your life that you're now able to actually quantify because you're living in it.
Exactly.
And you can see the worth of it.
That's
and the
right.
wealth of it. Yeah.
That's right.
And I also like to think that, you know, like even if it ever comes to a point where we are not able to do this for, you know, a lot of the other people, we will always still do it for ourselves and our family, because, you know, I've seen how it's affected my, you know, my older son he does struggle with, you know, ADHD, and he's, you know, I feel like he used to be on a diet where he had a lot of sugar and a lot of carbohydrates, but now he eats everything in front of him. Don't get me wrong, he's like a garbage disposal, but but I think the quality of the things he eats now help him with some of his issues that he struggles with as far as the ADHD. And I know it's because we're healing him. He's healing his body with food.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I mean, he's got purpose every day, you know, on the farm.
Yes. Yeah. My brother struggled with some of the same thing. And I can say by watching him grow up and then him getting to the age, and it was probably about the age that you're talking about, where he was like, yeah, no, I'm not taking that stuff anymore. I don't eat. I don't enjoy my life. I'm losing my creative thoughts about things. But that was of a generation, he's y'all's age. So that was of a generation where they were the initial kids that were beginning to be given that kind of stuff.
Yep.
And any kid that, my brother and I both are troublemakers, but troublemakers in like the good way. Like we're breaking the rules that needed to be broken, you know, and we don't sit still in a desk because we're not the kind of people that are meant to sit still in a desk. The reason I can work outside and do the kind of work I do is because I don't sit well behind a computer screen all day.
That's right. God made everybody on purpose for a purpose. And to say that everybody needs to go and sit in a classroom for the first, 13, 14, 15 years of their life, and to be molded and structured into, or conditioned into thinking and doing things a certain way so they're a good employee. I think people are waking up to that. That's not good for us. Everybody doesn't do well in that environment. Everybody has a special gift or multiple special gifts. And if we're trying, that goes along with the industrial food system and everything else that's like
Oh yeah.
factory farming and factories in themselves. We're trying to spit out kids all be the same
Mm-hmm.
when we're all individuals. We're all
Mm-hmm.
different. We have a spirit and
Mm-hmm.
a soul that lives inside of us. To like, you're fiery. You want to go out there and revolutionize the food industry or the food system down in this area, and you've done that. And
Mm-hmm.
that's the way I've always felt. I've always felt like I want to do the hard stuff.
Yeah.
Whether it was in sports, I wanted to play the positions that nobody else wanted to play.
Yeah.
Whether it was choosing a career or doing like this, like farming. Like,
Yeah.
why would you want to get into this?
Yeah.
Why would you want to?
Yeah.
Why would you want to get into farming and it be your
It's a
business?
calling, honestly. Like I don't even think we know how we ended up here. We can tell you a story of some things that occurred, but it's like I don't live any other lifestyle. Like, this is my lifestyle. Even when I left Grow Local, there was no way to like live out of this, so like you were saying that, like, even if you decided that the business wasn't for you guys to like sell for other people anymore, that it's still your lifestyle. There's no way to get out of, this way of producing food for ourselves. And
I don't think we'd want to.
right.
We know what we have, what the quality we have that we can't get, only a handful of other places, and the average farmer in America is, 65, 70 years old. And
Yeah.
there's even maybe a 0.5% of them that are farming this away.
Yes.
You know?
Oh gosh.
So
I can't tell you the number of times as I listen to, and I'm not listening to a stream of people that are only talking about small scale agriculture farms. I'm listening to anybody that's talking about wellness at all. And they're always talking about, as quick as you can get to a farm, go out to a farm. If you can go have friends that have a farm, that live on a farm, if you can get yourself onto a farm. So I think that one of the things I'm truly discovering is the wealth that we have by being the visionary leaders that were willing to like brave the wilderness. Like, we're going to just, nobody even gets why I'm doing this. But if there's 1% of people in this community that get why I'm doing it, then it's worth it for the 1% of people, And I think that one of the things, as a marketing person, one of the things I've tried to teach in terms of sustainability with you guys and everybody that I've been trying to communicate with is that if you haven't perfected your skill for the 1% of the population, then the other 99% actually don't matter to you. The problem is that we get so afraid when we have this desire inside of us to change the world, to save the world, that 99% of the people out there are not paying enough attention to us. Well, what happens a lot of times is that we're not taking care of that 1% and making sure while you're learning how to do it, you want to make sure that when Aislynn Campbell gets asked the question, why is it that Turkey Hollow tends to be where you get your meat and who you name as your meat farmer the most? And my answer is because their meat tastes the best. Well, that's because you've spent your time making sure 1% of the population knows yours is the best. Right. And
Yeah,
now
that's
I can
exactly
get on a
right.
podcast every week and talk about the meat that I buy. And I've got other farmers that I buy stuff from.
Right. Yeah.
But straight up, when I get asked that question, and I think that one of the challenges that you guys know the farmers market industry enough, just like I do. And one of the challenges that I find in, communicating to the other farmers is like, you're never going to create sustainability if you're trying to provide the product to 89% of the people, and 89% of the people aren't going to want to pay the price. They don't understand the quality of food that you're using. They're not going to be consistent customers, and you're going to scale to them, and then they're going to leave you high and dry. And so I think that what I'm finding in this conversation at the dinner table tonight is just this idea of like understanding, how does it actually work for a real family that's actually trying to create sustainable income? You're doing other work too, but you're creating this lifestyle for yourself.
Well, it's, people work a career and then they get a side hustle, right? Because they want to go do other things with that side hustle money. Maybe they want to reinvest it into another business, or maybe if they're an entrepreneur, they want to invest it in that business, or, whatever it may be. But, having multiple streams of income, if you can
Yeah.
manage it, what's wrong with that?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. That's the
And
answer.
that, the roots, and no pun intended, are going to be on the farm.
Yes.
That I'm not getting away from that. I don't want to get away from that. That
Yeah.
is security. You want to talk about security?
Yes.
That is
Yeah.
security.
Yes. I'm passionate enough about it to live an entire lifestyle about it. You guys are too. So if you ask us what the answer to all the problems is, it is feeding yourself.
Absolutely.
This is the answer to all the problems. Because even when you're talking about the system changes, what if the economy in this one particular area crashes? We're not going to be able to fix that system, right?
Like it did in 2020.
Exactly.
Snowmageddon and all that,
Right. Yeah.
Food systems are 3 days away from not
Yeah.
having any food in the stores.
Yeah.
And what has really fired me up with all that in 2020 and the Snowmageddon down here is the people going out and getting freezers again. People
Uh-huh.
starting to can. People
Uh-huh.
wanting to come to the farm and learn skills.
Uh-huh.
We need these skills. We can't be one dimensional. You can't be one dimensional. They normally give you 2 keys for your car.
Uh-huh.
Why? Because you could lose one.
Right.
Why would you only want to depend on going out to Whataburger every night or any other fast food or shopping meal to meal, right? When you can have a freezer full of food,
Mm-hmm.
it goes back to your recipe, then you could cook yourself something. And when you can cook yourself something, it empowers you to do more for yourself. But because we live in that type of society where everybody has a specialized job.
Mm-hmm.
You do this, I do that.
Yep.
This happens over here.
Yep.
You can't build a house here because it's not in a zoning. It's in a zoning area.
Yeah.
That's not how nature works.
No. And it will crash us every single time. And it's crashing us and it's not sustainable. And we can see that. I don't know that everybody in the world can see that, but we can certainly see that. My whole entire everything about life has completely changed over the years. And one of the big things that I would come out really strongly, I used to be able to say in the early days before Hurricane Harvey, I would say, for when the zombie apocalypse is coming. And then the Hurricane Harvey came and I was like, for when the hurricanes come. And then the pandemic came and I was like, for when they martial law our asses and tell us all we can't take care of ourselves and feed ourselves and
everything that people said you're just crazy,
Yeah.
you're a conspiracy theorist, and it keeps coming true.
Yeah.
It's like, well, you live your life and I'm going to live mine. But when I have food or when I have the things I need or the skills I need to survive, me and my family are going to thrive. Even if I wasn't growing meat, I could still survive.
Feed your family.
Yeah. Because
absolutely. Yeah.
Fishing and hunting.
Yeah. 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 And we learn things on the farm by knowing, which grass has the highest protein in it.
Absolutely.
So, I know that sounds strange to people, but it's like, we know where the protein, we know where the food is. We know how to make sure our family makes it over a hump. These are the types of things that we've learned by paying attention to this kind of stuff.
Those bones and those scraps that go in the dumpster and the landfills, we make broth out of.
Yeah.
It's nutrient dense.
Yeah.
And, I can't remember where I read it, but I want to say like somewhere in Poland, I don't know what century it was, but they went through a severe famine and an awful, awful long winter. And they got by on bone broth all winter long.
Yeah.
That's all they had.
Yeah.
And it sustained them.
It's funny that this conversation came up at the dinner table tonight because I remember I opened up my freezer and I looked inside my freezer and it's just me here and things have changed and things are cleaner in different ways and it's just me. And I looked at that freezer and it was like this pristine, it was full of frozen figs, some meat, and then it had some pork broth, some chicken broth, some beef broth, all inside there. And it made me think like that with a pantry full of, vegetables. It's a different kind of mindset. And I'm grateful. Know this about your farmers, friends. We care about you as much as we care about our own family, right? And what you'll find is that when we create a network of people and that network is in communication with us, when the shit gets bad, guess who gets food? Guess who gets fed? But it's not because we're like, oh, we were going to take care of our family and we can only take care of our family. Like, we're the most giving farmers just across the board.
You've taken care of us by supporting us, through thick and thin. Maybe even, in times that we don't know your personal testimony when you've been down on your luck and may have not had a lot of money, you still come to the market and bought one thing from us.
Yes.
I don't know the store, or you've been up in an upward swing and you've just spent a lot of money,
Yeah.
hard earned money, and you bought our product, that
Means a lot.
Oh, I mean, how many times, and it still happens from time to time, but in the early stages, like Krystle, I don't know how we're going to make the bills this week.
Oh.
And she says, just keep the faith. God has
Keep the faith.
provided.
Yep.
And then you just have a stellar market or a stellar week, and the customers come out, and we're up and running again for another week or two.
Yeah.
And it just happened over and over and over.
The
And
faithful farmer.
It's because of the customers. It's because of you, because y'all believe in our products.
And I feel like God has blessed what we do. And that's why just when we think maybe how in the world are we going to, pay for the feed that we need for this next week? Yeah. And then we have, an amazing market because customers come out and they support, so generously. And then we're able to do what we need to do. And we just keep going.
Keep showing up on this farm. I got to protect it.
Yeah.
If I'm going to keep showing up for the customer, that is, I got to protect it.
People that you're feeding, like you feed my family.
Yeah,
for years, y'all fed my family.
I'm not going to get bailed out when if we go into a downturn, a bad downturn. No. Yeah. I'm not as fortunate as the auto dealers or the banks.
Yeah.
So
even the big farmers for that matter.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. We don't have subsidies to rely on. So resilience.
I'm glad you guys have been here. It's been a great evening, and I want you to tell me a little bit more about how do we find you? How do we find your farm? And how do I get to know where I can get any of your... Man, it's been such a great dinner table to have you guys here. And yeah, you guys and I could just talk for hours. Ryan and I would stand at the farmer's market for just a few minutes, and all of a sudden we're solving all of the world's problems, from politics to agriculture to school systems. Who knows? I've enjoyed having that opportunity, and I hope we get to do this again. Before we go, though, I really want you guys to tell me exactly where we can find Turkey Hollow Farm. Where are you located at? How does somebody come and visit you if they want to? What markets are you out? Tell us everything we need to know.
So we are Turkey Hollow Farm, Ryan and Krystle Keller. I'm going to mention Aiden and Jet because they're a big part of our business as well. But we do 2 farmers markets. We have an online farm store. It's Turkey Hollow Farm Store online, where you can place pre-orders. You can order online. And
is that turkeyhollow.com?
It's turkeyhollowfarmstore.com.
turkeyhollowfarmstore.com. Okay.
And you can also find us on Facebook at Turkey Hollow Farm and Instagram. The content that flows through Instagram and Facebook and other platforms like that is continually being updated with stuff, and stories are live. And I've
been watching. I watch you for years. For years, I've been like keeping an eye on where are you going, what are you up to.
Yeah, I really like that. And then obviously people. And I've had a lot of people reach out. It's getting linked up where they can come out and do a farm tour.
Yeah.
And really see where the rubber meets the road.
And Turkey Hollow is in Cuero.
It's in Cuero, Texas. So we don't grow turkeys anymore on Turkey Hollow Farm. So how we got the name, because I think a lot of people are confused by this, is where we reside is the Turkey Hollow Farm subdivision. That's kind of that area. It's not a small subdivision. It's large 12, 13 acre plots. And we bought that property just with the intentions of social distancing before that was even a thing. Just getting out of town.
That's like my parents.
Yeah, and then the farming come after that. We're not generational farmers. So it was like, let's name it after our area or region, so Turkey Hollow Farm is. So yeah, they used to raise lots and lots of turkeys, and they'd have turkey trots down through the streets, 100 years ago to get them to market. We started out trying to do everything.
Yeah.
And
that's not unusual, by the way.
No, and I'll preface this with this: anybody that's trying. That's interested in doing something, just learn one skill. Just learn a skill and take it one step at a time. Don't try to do too much. Don't try to hold yourself to this hierarchy of things that are going to make it miserable and make you think that it's like I can't do this. It's just too much. Just try to get better. Try to do better. Try to learn one thing, and that's what.
And let today be okay. Today's okay.
That's right. So we did way too much. And it was like, what are the real things that people are after? Let's grow the staples.
Yeah.
And that made our life and our business life a lot better.
The evolution of observation and then watching it and then learning from it and having the experiences from it. So
there is a lot more to the game than just having this beautiful photography and the dew in the morning and the chickens frolicking in the grass. There is a business side to it. And that's probably the hardest thing for a lot of farmers to wrap their head around, and to be comfortable of charging what they need to charge for the product, because what we're charging for our product is more than what you're going to pay at the store. And traditionally, for 75, 80 years, people have bought food cheaply. It's been produced cheaply and poorly. And, that's the way people were conditioned. And it goes back to, like you're saying, the 1%. So what we decided to do was raise beef, grass-fed and finished beef.
Yeah, and it's excellent.
Pasture-raised pork.
Also very, very good. Regular
pasture-raised chicken. We do a layer flock operation, and I partner with Stephen Koenig, which is down the road from us, that raises grass-fed and finished lamb and cabrito.
Yeah. You know what? You guys have raised the game on lamb in Corpus Christi. There's a lot more people that are like, thankfully they can get lamb because of you guys. So I'm grateful for it, for sure. Okay, so we have the last thing that we have to do here. And I just read this question literally. Which 3 objects would you save first if your house caught on fire? I'm like, you're going to teach us a lesson on what we should be grabbing first.
I would grab our wedding picture, our portrait. I would, I think.
Do you know where that's at?
I have a good guess.
Probably objects, not people. So probably my pistol beside my bed, my cell phone.
Yeah.
And
we have lots of
car keys.
What? Yeah, car keys, right?
Yeah. So
what do you need from the firefighter? What do you actually need from your home? If
you
something,
need your family out.
You just need your family
That's
out.
what I would really be focusing on, And that's the thing we actually I talk about my kids quite frequently. Hey, and if I can get a little fire prevention in on this too, it's like shut your doors at night. Even a hollow core door provides a lot of fire and smoke protection.
So in your bedroom doors,
yes,
that's what you're saying.
Yeah, compartmentalize yourself.
Okay.
So if a fire breaks out in another room, you don't get inundated by smoke inhalation or heat products. It allows your smoke detectors that you should have in your house, and you should have them checked frequently every month, and then change the batteries every 6 months. Make sure those are functional, and shut the doors and have an escape route. If you can't get out of your house because of fires blocking the doorway, make sure you can get out a window. We talk about that, and it's one of those things. So I do that to make it less scary, which is going to be a frightening event if that ever happens.
Yeah.
But they also have that subliminally. It's a muscle memory thing now. Oh, the smoke alarms are going off. I open my door and it's smoky and hot. What do I do? Well, Dad's always talked about going through a window.
Yeah.
And we have a meeting place.
Yeah. I love how the random questions always end up like in this perfect alignment. I'm like, how did that was perfect. Like, pull this out.
Fire prevention
lesson. Fire prevention lesson.
Shut your doors, compartmentalize.
Thank you guys so much for being here. I really appreciated having dinner. Thank you for bringing the meat tonight and sharing your hard work and your wealth with me. I appreciate that. Thank you guys for coming to the dinner table yet again. The best thing that you can do to help support this podcast is tell a friend about your friend farmers, Turkey Hollow, that have come out and talked on the podcast. If you're listening to this on YouTube, please subscribe to my YouTube channel. And of course, if you want to do a little bit of extra special support of the podcast, go to dinnertabletalks.com. At the top of the podcast where it says support this podcast, drop a few bucks in there. That helps us keep doing the work that we're doing. I can stay on the farm doing the work that I'm doing, because I can add to it the interesting content creation that I do as well. And so we're all trying to come up with all types of diversity to keep our economic flows going. Thank you all for joining us at the dinner table. Thank you, Kellers. I love you guys.
We love you.
Thank you for feeding my family.
You're welcome.